Today's guest is Roggio, the director of the new documentary 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted Culture. The film uncovers the truth about homophobia in Christianity, exploring the false translations of the word homosexual, a word that actually didn't appear in the Bible until 1946. Rocky's diving into the film and more. This is Advocate Now. Well, Rocky, congrats on your documentary, 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted Culture. What inspired this project?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So I grew up in the church, and anybody who grew up in the church and identifies as LGBTQIA+ knows that those two things don't really mix. So I've been trying to find a way to affirm my reality and my identity with my non-affirming parents, which means they do not recognize me as a fully functioning person in society as a queer person because of their religious beliefs. And so I started to look in the Bible because the only way to really communicate with them is through the Bible. And as I was on this exploration, I discovered Kathy Baldock and Ed Oxford, who were the first people in history to ask the question, who made the decision to put the word homosexual in the Bible and why? And was it ideological or cultural? And so because they asked that question, it has led to all of this. The movie, us getting to be able to tell their story. David, who wrote the letter in 1959, which if you see the movie, you'll see, he challenged the translation committee in 1959 saying, you have a bad translation. And then we have the records pulled from Yale University showing that this was indeed a mistranslation, and the translation committee retracted their decision to use that word. So it's a phenomenal story. But because of my personal involvement as an LGBTQ person of faith, I was led down this path. But I think it's such an important story.
And speaking of your personal involvement, I mean, growing up in the church, your dad was a minister, but you also realized that you were gay at a pretty young age. Can you take me back to that point and tell me what that experience was like for you?
Sure. So it would be the mid 80s, dating myself. I was about 5 years old, and I saw a representation in media, which is very rare during that time, talking about lesbians. And I immediately identified with these two women holding hands, talking about their relationship. And I didn't have any language to use. I had no idea really what that meant. I just knew I identified with that because I didn't identify with what I was being presented in the world of this heteronormative reality that we're all presented with. And I'm like, where do I fit in? So that led me to really just continue to question. And then I was 16 years old when I really had the language and realized, oh, this is what it is. And, kissed a girl for the first time and the rest is history. And so I believe a lot of us have that experience at a young age where you just realize the world we see is not really how I'm feeling inside.
Do you remember a specific moment when you maybe developed this idea that being gay was wrong?
Sure. So growing up in the church, you always hear this kind of rhetoric that being queer is definitely wrong. It wasn't really directly preached on my dad's pulpit until I came out. And it also wasn't really preached on the pulpit until the 80s, which we show in the film, when the Bible was really turned against the queer community as a weapon and started to be really preached on the pulpit and all these different things. So, it's the temperature in America and really around the world. Queer people have always been persecuted, and we've always had homophobia has always existed and all these different themes. But as far as it being a sin, it's just in the temperature in America, whether you're religious or not, or you read the Bible or not, it's just immediately identified. The same thing with one man, one woman doctrine, the biblical view on marriage, and these things that are instilled in us that I understood as a young age that there was something off with the theology that I was being presented. Even the way that women are treated, people of color are treated, left-handed people back during history. I mean, all these different things where you see the Bible has been used to uplift certain people groups and marginalize others. And I didn't, again, have the language to put into words what I was experiencing. I just knew that there was something off with the religion that I was being presented. And so that led me to being the troublemaker, because I would always question. And if I were born a boy, I bet the church would have seen me as a leader. But instead, I was the troublemaking girl But nope, I'm just a queer person that has a little bit of sensibility. And hopefully then we can take this information that we learn to be able to create a better reality, not just for queer people or people who are oppressed through religion, but our oppressors who are using the Bible incorrectly. We all need freedom from this so that we can just stop using the Bible to hurt people.
Right. And as the documentary unveils, and as you mentioned, the word homosexual wasn't found in the Bible until 1946, meaning that a variety of words written in the original Bible text were falsely translated to the word homosexual in 46. What was your reaction when you first discovered that?
For me, with my own story of trying to affirm my reality with my parents, it was like being hit in the face with, wow, I have to tell this story. This is the most important information to help liberate queer people. And also to what separates our film from other films that do a great job of dealing with homophobia in the church is the translation history that we present in there and getting people to wrap their heads around the Bible wasn't written in English. And so there are things in there that aren't really what was originally intended. And so what we wanted to do was not really pull the rug out from underneath anyone who believes in the Bible, who believes in the Word of God, who loves God, but instead just recognizing that the Bibles that we have today are not what they were originally intended, and trying to create a conversation to get around these things. Like the translation committee admitted it was a mistranslation, but then how did it get amplified into this weapon that we see today? So those are kinds of the tones of the film that we wanted to amplify.
Why do you think so many devout Christians have such a difficult time accepting that homosexuality was actually never condemned in the Bible? And also, do you think that we're finally starting to see a shift in the way that the church views queerness?
I definitely see a shift in the way that the church views queerness. There are two different camps in this group, the people who are saying, we've been doing this wrong, and we really need to reevaluate this. And they're able to recognize the new information and this information and seeing that, okay, the Bible was mistranslated. Where do we go from here? Then there are other camps who are pushing back and starting to continue to move the goalpost, change the language. And they'll say things like, well, of course, people are born gay. We're all born with something, but we have to pick up our cross and bear the cross. And so our choices are celibacy or getting into a mixed orientation marriage. And so, I think the reason why people are not able to get on board is this is a generational issue. And again, homophobia has always plagued our reality. And when you look at what's going on in the verses, it's about feminizing men. And the last thing that you want to be as a man is a woman. So it has all these themes of patriarchy, misogyny, and things that we still see today. You're a sissy, you're a pansy, you're a pussy, excuse my French, And so we're still doing these types of things. And so once you really start to unravel what's really going on, it's more about feminizing men and treating men like women, which wasn't acceptable because it was a cultural thing. It had nothing to do with same gender loving relationships. They had no concept of heterosexuality and homosexuality. And so those are some other themes to just kind of unravel as our movie breaks down cultural and historical context and helps us to ripple effect our society into really thinking about these themes to help alleviate us from this oppression.
And I know that you're currently doing a virtual event in connection with the film. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we were successful at doing a theatrical release in December in London, New York, and Los Angeles, and it was wonderful. And we wanted to make the movie available at home. And now that on a post-COVID world, there's all these virtual theatrical releases. So we're like, let's do a theatrical release. So if you wanted to watch the movie, you have until January 14th to hop on our worldwide virtual release at 1946themovie.com. You can rent a ticket on Eventive, and we'd love to see you there. Other than that, we're going to be doing impact campaigns and being in churches and things like that. So you can still email us if you wanted us to do an event in your church while we're working on streaming. If you know any streaming networks out there that want to pick us up, we'd love to talk with you.
Well, Rocky, congratulations on the film. Thank you for all the work you're doing. Everybody make sure you check it out. And also thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you.
I'm Sonia Baghdadi. Thanks so much for watching and advocating. For more stories and content like this, just head to advocate.com and advocatechannel.com.